Kicking off the list at number 10, Flash Freeze. Bart Allen is the grandson of Barry Allen. He skipped the whole teenage years and went to being an adult. You know, speedsters are wild. Thus becoming the Flash, for a small amount of time. Because the evil speedster, Inertia, aka Thaddeus Thawne, killed Bart Allen. Now at the same time, Wally West returned from his plane of existence, heard about the death of Bart, and started to join the hunt for Inertia himself. He was obviously very upset, but instead of killing him, he decided to freeze Inertia, like literally, like a living statue. By using his abilities, he slowed down Inertia's movements so slow that he's basically frozen in time. He's immobile. Literally a living statue, and his new home being the Flash Museum. While he's forced to look at statues of Bart Allen as Impulse and Kid Flash, he can still see and think in real time. He just can't move. That's like some House of Wax type stuff. He's just sitting there like, oh, this sucks. Wally describes it best, saying he's forced to stare with eyes that take 100 years to blink at the ghost of a man he could never be. Oof, that's good. We love it. And before we go on to number 9, guys, if you could go ahead and give us a thumbs up, because it helps us out a lot here at our studio. Well, here at our home studio for the time being. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. And back to our list. Number 9, World War Hulk. So Thor Ragnarok was loosely based off the Planet Hulk storyline. I say loosely because that story didn't end up going so well in the comics. See, on Sakaar, the rocket that the Hulk arrived in ended up blowing to smithereens, causing some casualties that left the Hulk, well, ready for some revenge, obviously. So he heads back to Earth, and thus begins the World War Hulk storyline. Time for some payback. While on Sakaar, he remembers who the real monsters were this whole time. I love this 5-parter a lot. The Hulk just destroys everybody. All the heroes that Earth has come to love just in the path of this beast. He locks the Illuminati in Madison Square Garden, so now it's like Madison Square Up Garden. So he locks them in and makes them fight to death. Once you spend enough time on Sakaar, the whole gladiator lifestyle kind of becomes second nature, I guess. It's a bloody good read, not for the faint of heart, but it's one of the best stories. But it's one of my favorite Hulk stories, so you have to check it out if you haven't already. Number 8, Wesley Gibson and the Fraternity. Mark Millar, Marvel Comics writer, is the mastermind behind Kick-Ass and Wanted, both of which are mentioned on this list, of course, because their comeback stories are amazing. Beginning with Wesley Gibbons in Wanted. So we have Star-Lord sleeping with Professor X's wife, and well, it doesn't end well. Yikes. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, the fraternity lied to Wesley in order to recruit him. They say his dad was killed by Cross, and Wesley has to avenge him by training to become his super assassin by Angelina Jolie and co. And it's pretty brutal. He really goes through it. So when Wesley's finally about to kill Cross, it's revealed that he's actually his father the whole time. Some Star Wars right there. So Wesley decides to plot an entirely new plan, to take out every member of the fraternity, and of course finishing off with Sloane. Number 7, Revenge for Gwen. This one left average moviegoers stunned in theaters when The Amazing Spider-Man 2 hit the big screen. Because of course we finally had to see the moment where Gwen Stacy meets her fate. Of course, this comes from the comics, specifically in issue 121 of The Amazing Spider-Man. The Green Goblin drops her off the Brooklyn Bridge, and although Peter has his trusty webs, sometimes the angle just doesn't work out for the best, and Gwen's neck ended up snapping from the momentum. Eagle Eye fans could spot that the clock tower in the part in the movie struck 12:10, which is a reference to the comic book 121. So the Green Goblin continued to taunt Spider-Man afterwards while he was trying to cope with being partly responsible for the love of his life's death. Spider-Man gets his revenge though in the very next issue, and it's pretty sweet, when a well-timed backflip results in the Green Goblin stabbing himself with his own glider. Number 6, Deadpool and AJAX.
You can't fix me?
It sounds even stupider when you say it.
Like the kind of stupid who admits he can't do the one thing I'm keeping him alive for?
The 2016 Deadpool movie is one of my favorite movies ever. Of course, I'm thrilled to see Deadpool come to the MCU with that nice, juicy R rating. Let's go, come back home. But in a list about revenge, Wade vs. Ajax is a must include. In a storyline called Payback, Ajax was trying to hunt down Deadpool for trying to kill him earlier. And Deadpool wanted payback against Ajax for putting him and others through torture and the death of Wade's friend, Worm. Of course, didn't help. So when Ajax tried to kill Deadpool again, it wasn't that easy. The tides changed because now Deadpool ended up snapping his neck. In the movie, Wade pulls the trigger on Ajax right as Colossus is giving a motivational speech on why you shouldn't kill people, and the timing is creme de la creme. Number 5, Hit Girl and Mobsters. So we're back again looking at the work of Mark Millar, like I mentioned earlier. So if we're talking about Wanted, we have to talk about Hit Girl and Kick-Ass, played by the incredibly talented Chloe Grace Moretz. Okay, so after her father, aka Big Daddy, aka Nicolas Cage, began training Mindy at a young age to be a violent assassin, stylized in the comics that Big Daddy loved to read. So the mob boss, Frank D'Amico, framed Damon, Big Daddy McCready. He was put in jail, and then his wife, Mindy, committed suicide. So Hit Girl's mother committed suicide as well. So now she only has one parent, and he's in jail. So afterwards, he trains himself and young Mindy, really young Mindy, to be these killer, brutal assassins. Down the road, we have, of course, Kick-Ass in the picture, and Red Mist tricks him into revealing the whereabouts of Big Daddy and Hit Girl. So Frank's men took Kick-Ass and Big Daddy, leaving the revenge on just Hit Girl. So Hit Girl stormed the hideout and fought all of Frank's men. And when I say fought, I mean brutally killed them, is what I guess a better term for it. But Big Daddy was lit on fire during this madness, and he didn't make it. But don't worry, she had the last laugh. Or at least the last shot. Number 4, Bullseye and Daredevil. When her father was killed, Elektra dropped out of school and decided the way to go was, of course, to become an assassin. Similar theme throughout this entire list. So for many years, she worked as a bounty hunter. She took a contract in New York and eventually crossed paths with Daredevil, which is just the coolest part from the movie, which we all remember. So they worked together and they fought Bullseye, but Matt wasn't on board with her profession, but they remained close, nonetheless. They were still good friends. Then Kingpin hired Elektra as his chief assassin and was sent to kill Ben Urich, but Daredevil intervened. So Kingpin told her to kill Matt's best friend, Foggy, as payback. But Foggy recognized her and she couldn't end up doing it. She couldn't carry it out. So in the Death and Resurrection storyline, Bullseye figured the best way to make it back on top of Kingpin's list, he had to kill Elektra, and then he did, using her own side. So revenge is of course in order. Daredevil hunted down Bullseye and during the fight allowed Bullseye to fall from a telephone pole, shattering his spine. Number 3, the loop of life. Flash versus Zoom. Everybody has that one memory they wish they could just delete from their brain, just delete out of existence. Maybe you're late for work, maybe you spilled coffee all over your new jean shorts, whatever the case is. Now, what if you had to relive that nightmare day over and over and over and over again, like Groundhog Day style? Well, that's what happens to Zoom. In The Flash issue 200, Wally West uses his powers to defeat him when he freezes him and makes him repeat the worst day of his life over and over. Now, this is why I would like to be a speedster, this issue right here. I'd love to make everybody just chill out, especially right now, and just relive your best moment. Just sit there and be like, oh, we're going on rides. And then as soon as we're done, we're like, hey, the world's back to normal, what's up? No, this guy's like, nah, you're gonna repeat the worst day ever. Like, he just looks like he's in so much pain. The dramatic one teardrop too, like that's unpleasant. This is like an episode of Black Mirror. It's just a nightmare. So Zoom just sits and repeats the line, he doesn't have a gun, trust me, Ashley, over and over and over again. Poor Hunter Zolomon. I mean, he's not the best guy in the world by any means, but this is literally torture, no? Number 2, The Punisher. After accidentally witnessing a mafia hit, Frank Castle's wife, Maria, and children, Lisa and Frank Jr., were both gunned down. So Frank Castle, being the only survivor, who is also a former US Marine who served multiple tours, has the Bronze Star, Silver Star, and 4 Purple Hearts, he decides to spend the rest of his life sporting that white skull on his chest and taking down any shred of organized crime. He was the only survivor, and initially he actually wanted to testify in court to identify the shooters, like a normal human being. But because the New York City Police Department were so tight with the mafia, he wasn't able to do that. Now he's fully prepared and equipped to kill everybody involved in the murder of his family. And it's a pretty good movie as well. Or show. The show's amazing. Watch the show, definitely. And finally, number 1, Tony Stark beats Thanos. In Avengers Infinity War, Doctor Strange gave up the Time Stone to save Tony's life. Now, he had seen into the future, so he knew that there was only one way to survive the following outcome. Giving Thanos a stone was part of that outcome. But the winning part came much, much later. Tony had to watch as Thanos snapped away half of the universe's life, including a heart-wrenching scene where he sees Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker, disappear in front of him. So 5 years, 1 kid, and many, many hours of trauma later, Stark gets the chance to not only kill Thanos, but dust his entire army at the same time. Using the same words that closed the first Iron Man movie, he closed off the timelines where Thanos was ever an issue. I like how all of Thanos' squad got dusted in a similar manner as the Avengers. Like, even the way Ebony Maw's walking with his hand on his stomach mirrors what Spider-Man looked like when he was about to get dusted. And then of course Thanos sitting at the end, right before he disappears, mirrors when he was sitting in his whole farm after he just won an Infinity War. So it's nice. So this time the Avengers came out on top. Well, most of them. Sorry, Black Widow. But also thanks.
Number 10, we have X-23. If you come within 100 meters of Wolverine, you can bet that your life is about to get a lot more depressing. This dude has some terrible mojo with him, and if I was him, I would want to have a word with the Watcher because it seems like someone else should have to bear some of this load. If you're a clone of Wolverine, you can bet that you're going to have a very similar life. X-23 was cooked up in a lab and trained to be a living weapon. And by trained, I mean tortured for years until she was able to escape. There's a laundry list of people that she probably probably wants to kill, but the man who would be most deserving of her wrath would be Xander Rice, the scientist who tormented her for years. Well, here's the thing. If you're going to make a living weapon that has thoughts, feelings, and memories, you might want to make sure that you're nicer to her because you don't want that weapon turning on you. Eventually, X-23 makes her way to Rice, and he receives a beatdown that lasts for 10 minutes. There was literally a timer in the comics that showcased how long he got smashed for. I couldn't last in a 10-minute long fight, period. It doesn't matter who I'm fighting. I don't have the cardio. Could you imagine fighting one of Wolverine's clones for 10 minutes? They would have to invent a new word for the type of concussion I would have. Coming at number 9, we have Robin Becomes a Clown. Who knew that The Dark Knight Returns would get a sequel? I didn't know you could return twice. But in this story, we have a superhero revenge that really strikes to the core of Batman. Robin, Dick Grayson, becomes the Joker. Just when he thought he finally got rid of him, now he has to deal with an even worse version. What happens is Batman fires Robin from being Robin, which is kinda lame. It's not like you can put that on a resume and just find a new super gig somewhere else. Also, you pulled him into this world. So to get revenge on the old dusty Batman, Dick Grayson becomes the Joker. Coming in at number 8, we have Superman Ends the Joker. We know that Batman and Superman have their ways of dealing with villains, and even if it isn't the most effective way, it seems like these guys keep breaking out and causing harm, but it's comic books. What can you do? It's part of the fun. But we know that Batman and Superman don't like to kill. It's against their code of ethics, and even though there have been a few instances where Superman has killed, like when he sentenced Zod to death, he sort of killed him inadvertently there, but for the most part, Supes tries to keep his hands clean. Well, there was one time when they got covered in blood, literally and figuratively. In the excellent DC fighting game Injustice Gods Among Us, there was actually a pretty thought out story for a fighter. It starts out with Joker setting up a bomb in Metropolis. He starts to branch out and mess with other heroes. Well, the bomb kills Lois Lane, and then Superman promptly goes insane. He flies down to the prison where Joker is being held, and then he smashes his hand right through his chest, and then he goes on to take over the earth with any of the heroes that will stand with him in his new dictator style of ruling. Wonder Woman says yes, Batman says no, and then we got a game on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. Coming in at number 7, we have Molecule Man depowers Dr. Doom. When we jump into the Secret Wars comics, we see one of my favorite moments in Dr. Doom's history. I really like Doom because even though he's one of the most evil dudes around, he has been right a few times. And when the universe was ripped apart, Dr. Doom teams up with Molecule Man to make a new battle world that sees him as the emperor of everything. I don't think that's how the heroes would want things to play out, but for a while, things are actually functioning really well. But here's the thing, this Doom and Molecule Man team up wasn't so much a team up as it was Doom using the hero for his powers and then rejecting him any sort of attention or food. Eventually, Molecule Man snaps and sucks Doom of all of his powers, and then the heroes are able to take him out and restore balance to the universe. Next on the list, we have Batman against the Mutant Leader. The Dark Knight Returns still stands as one of the best comic books ever, and for good reason. It's Rocky meets Batman. You have a Superman-Batman fight, and it all takes place in a rundown, even more dangerous future version of Gotham. In this comic, you have an aged Batman in his 50s, coming out of retirement to put the cape back on and deal out justice. But when it comes to his first encounter with a big baddie, it doesn't go as planned. He fights the Mutant Leader, who is the muscle mass leader of the most powerful gang in Gotham. Even though Batman is Batman, he's old and he's been out of the game for quite some time. So the Mutant Leader puts a beating on him that nearly leaves the Bat dead, if it wasn't for a new Robin coming in to save him. Batman is able to escape, but he doesn't forget that he has a score to settle. The next time these two face off will be in front of nearly the entire mutant gang. No gadgets, no weapons, just two men squaring off for control of the mutant gang and thus Gotham City. It's one of the best fights I've ever seen in comics, and it showcases Batman's tactical mind as the advantage over his bigger, stronger, younger opponent. Next on the list, we have Punisher kills Howard Saint. Now, even though the Punisher movie isn't the most loved Marvel movie of all time, when people badmouth the DC cinematic universe, everyone forgets that Marvel had to make Punisher, Spider-Man 3, and Ghost Rider before we ever got to Iron Man. And even after that, the Thor movies were pretty bunk until 3, and Iron Man 3 was also a wash. So give DC some time. I'm sure they'll figure it out, or they won't, I don't know. But back to my point, in the Punisher movie, we have Frank Castle hunting down Howard Saint, the man who killed his family and turned him into the anti-hero that we have all come to love. And when Frank Castle finally gets his way back to the mob boss's house, who's played by John Travolta, he gets his revenge big time. He kills the dude's whole family, and then he has him dragged by a car through a series of explosions that eventually lights him on fire. I never took the Punisher for someone who liked theatrics, but apparently that's what he's all about. After that, guys, we have Marv feeds Kevin to wolves. This one is a bit of a shift from the other comics we've been covering so far. Sin City is a wild comic turned into a movie that is very gruesome, but it is awesome and kept me watching even though the whole thing was in black and white. To keep your viewer into the movie while the whole thing has no color, in this day and age, that is very impressive. Well, in one storyline, we have Marv, who is the toughest brute who can't be killed. He wakes up next to a dead lady. Very unfortunate. He then is framed for her murder. Even more unfortunate. But he's got a soft spot for the lady who was killed, so he goes on a revenge quest to find her killer. Turns out it was an insane serial killer named Kevin who eats them and keeps their heads in jars. Yeah, I'm not making this up. So to even the score, Marv cuts off Kevin's arms and legs and has him eaten by wolves. And Marv later learns that the Pope was the one sending out Kevin to do these dirty deeds, and he kills the Pope. Yeah, it really escalates.
I don't know why and I don't know how I never even met you before tonight, but you were a friend and more when I needed one.
Next on the list, we have Batman goes after his parents' killers. Joe Chill was always someone who was floating around comics as a symbol, just a ghost who was the motivation for Batman. That's until the writers brought him in and had Batman track him down. God, I wouldn't want to be the man who killed Batman's parents. Once Batman finally finds out where this dude lives, he starts to torment him psychologically for days, coming to his house over and over. Joe now can't sleep because he's terrified and starts to go a little crazy. It all caps off when Batman breaks in with a gun and tells Joe the reason that he's been doing this to him. And just so you know, Joe Chill ends up taking his own life to escape the torment. So Batman won't kill, but he will do everything around it to make you kill yourself. Next on the list, we have Charles Brainwashes Magneto. Charles Xavier and Magneto have been clashing heads ever since the first issue of the X-Men. These two go toe-to-toe all the time, and until more recently, they have never been able to see eye to eye. One of them wants mutants and humans to live side by side in a world where everyone is peaceful and no one ever fights, and the other sees the human race as a threat that must be put under the boot of mutant kind. Well, eventually Xavier has had enough and decides that he's going to get his revenge on his old friend slash enemy. He goes inside Magneto's mind and he rearranges things so Magneto thinks he's actually a human social worker. I can't think of a punishment more humiliating for the leader of the Brotherhood of Evil. To go from someone who used to be one of the most powerful mutants in the world, someone who hated humans with every fiber of their being, to someone who had to ride the bus so they can help humans get their life back on track. And just to rub it in, Charles goes to visit him frequently while he's stuck in this state. And coming in at the #1 spot, we got V for Vendetta. Come on, how could this not be the #1 spot? The whole story is about revenge. You can't get any closer to the biggest revenge story in comics than this one right here. And Natalie Portman shaved her head for the role and everyone lost their mind. Whoa, it was a big deal back then. But in this movie, you have V, who is a genetically enhanced ex-prisoner who was tortured by the government for years. In this dictatorship future, you have a fascist government that has taken control of everything, and anyone who steps out of line is taken in their sleep by the secret police and is never heard from again. The story ends with political leaders being killed, a revolution rising up to rewrite society, and the fall of the fascist government. The statement of revenge was so powerful in this story that the V for Vendetta mask became the symbol for the mysterious hacker group Anonymous. So I think being such an impactful story of revenge that the icons from that story impact real life, yeah, that's gonna get you the #1 spot on this list.
Number 10, the Joker beats Jason Todd. A Death in the Family is a 4-part storyline written by Jim Starlin and published in 1988. This was a huge moment in the Bat story because we see the Joker break out of Arkham Asylum and of course kills 8 people in the process. So Batman says himself that everybody is going to want a piece of the Joker after what he did to Barbara. He beat the second coming of Robin, Jason Todd, to death. So he beat him with a crowbar and then a bomb ended it all, supposedly. Like the Joker used Jason's mother, he blackmailed her and then used her just to get closer to Jason. That's crazy. And then of course he killed her off too, because why not? What's even crazier about this whole thing is that it was up to the fans to decide this fate. Yeah, there was a 36-hour period where you can call in and vote if you wanted the Joker to kill Robin or not. That's like the weirdest reality game show ever, I think. So dialing one number meant death, and then dialing another meant that he survives. And it got really close too. I think it was like almost 50-50 when it came to the votes. One caller actually admitted to dialing the number numerous times, which is what I would have done. I'm surprised only one person did that. Or at least one person admitted to that, more accurately. Sometimes Joker's plans to strike the bat don't work out, and sometimes we are the sole reason he gets that brutal payback after breaking out. So it's our fault. Also, before we get to number 9, we have a huge announcement. Our brand new gaming channel, Viper Girl, premieres January 22nd. Viper Girl will be streaming everything, your favorite sandbox, open games, your favorite horror games, anything you name it. It's gonna be a blast. January 22nd, you don't wanna miss. So get over there and subscribe as soon as you're done with this video, because it's gonna be a blast.
Oh my gosh, I almost died. I almost died. I thought you were a cactus, my friend. I thought you were a cactus. We've got iron, baby. Yes. Okay, my main goal is to blow up and then act like I don't know nobody. Bro, no, I'm gonna fight you with a pork chop. No, come here, come here. This is awesome.
Number 9, Kraven's Last Hunt. We take a look now at Kraven's Last Hunt, published in 1987, and it has quite an interesting illustration on the front cover. Here lies Spider-Man. Whoa, okay, so what's going on here? Okay, so this 5-part series starts off with Kraven being frustrated after his many failed attempts to catch Spider-Man. So he comes up with this brand new tactic to get back at the web-slinger. So he talks about for years how Spider-Man has thwarted him, mocked him, and humiliated him. And what better way to get back at somebody than by, well, burying them. And even worse, he takes Spider-Man's suit and replaces him out in the real world. So not only do you get defeated, but you also get replaced, adding insult to injury, literally. So then this new Spider-Man, well, our boy Kraven, now he roams New York City and brutally attacks criminals, including a group that was harassing Mary Jane. So 2 weeks later, Pete wakes up from the effects of the tranquilizer Kraven used, and then he digs himself out to freedom, which is, I mean, what a weird wake up that must be. And then when he confronted Kraven about what's going on, Kraven gets defensive. He's like, no way, Pete, I'm the real deal. I'm doing the Spider-Man gig now, not you. Get out of here. Wow, talk about taking an L, Pete. Jeez. Number 8, Harley Quinn fights back. They became the king and queen of Gotham City. They're basically the worst couple ever. I mean, I'm glad we're seeing more of Harley on the big screen now without the Joker. Harley Quinn has always been known for flipping back and forth, changing sides. But in the comics, her relationship with the Joker is abusive and controlling. And Harley Quinn Volume 2, Issue 25, she does something she should have done a long time ago and proceeds to give the Joker a ultimate beatdown, even biting a piece of his lip off during the scrap. Ah, sweet bloody revenge. Love to see it. Number 7, Mysterio. Quentin Beck made his first Marvel Comics appearance in Amazing Spider-Man issue 13 back in 1963, and he serves as an enemy to Deadpool, Daredevil, and of course, Spider-Man. He started off as a special effects artist and stuntman, but his career wasn't too hot, so he decided to put his skills to work and don this super identity. And he went to the Daily Bugle and announced that he would take down this hated Spider-Man, which of course J. Jonah Jameson was super on board with. So they battle it out, Mysterio wins, he finally gets that glory that he deserves. But of course Spider-Man couldn't have that, so he surprised Mysterio, and in typical actor fashion, he monologued his entire plan of disguising himself as Spider-Man, but Peter was prepared with a tape recorder. And Spider-Man was known as the guy who caught Mysterio. This all resulted in Mysterio seeking revenge for the rest of his life, and in The Amazing Spider-Man 196, he fakes Aunt May's death. So, while it's one thing to catch a villain early in his acts, you might kind of be the sole reason they're after you for the rest of their life. Number 6, Jack Frost. So while Mysterio in the MCU is a past employee of Stark Industries, the comics also showcase villains with similar origin stories, like Jack Frost, who was introduced in 1959's Tale of Suspense, issue 45. He was fired from Stark Industries, so he figured he would use the knowledge of Chironics to get back at Stark, deeming it a fitting revenge that he's dreamt up for him, turning him into a hunk of cold steel, that is. But on the way to settle the score with Tony Stark, he froze people on the street. Yeah, the guy went straight Frozone on his way there. So if you were on your way to work that day, you had no chance. So if you're gonna fire an employee who's also a tech whiz, you might want to check their bag on the way out the door. Number 5, Victor Von Doom. Making his first appearance in Fantastic Four issue 5, he's one of the most popular Marvel villains ever. He's a genius who thinks he would do a good job ruling the world, and he actually becomes the ruler of the land Latveria. So why the taste for ruling? Where did this all come from? Well, his mother, a Latvian woman, was connected with demons before Victor was even born. And well, after he was born, she attempted to tap into the demonic powers herself, but unfortunately she died during a bargain with Mephisto. So him and his dad made a break for it, but sadly his dad froze to death while protecting him one night. And then in hopes to bring back his mother, he used his big brain and turned to science and magic. So he attended classes with Reed Richards and Ben Grimm, and they didn't like each other. See, Reed pranked him. He changed his name to Doof instead of Doom on a trophy. So Victor Von Doof, which is not a bad idea. So when Doom started developing a machine that could astral project a being into another dimension in hopes to save his mother, Reed was like, hey, your calculations here are a little bit wrong. But he was annoyed because he was a bully, so he ignored his warnings. He ignored him, thinking he was being a doof himself. And then the machine blew up, messed his face up pretty well, and after being expelled for said experiment, he returned back to Liberia after getting a fancy new suit to become the new king. So he blamed Reed for his face and expulsion and explosion, and he vowed from that moment on to use his power to take down Reed and the Fantastic Four. And he succeeds quite a bit. Be nice to classmates, folks. I don't know, there might just be a king one day. Haven't we seen Shrek 4? Number 4, Black Mask. Making his first appearance in Batman issue 386, deadlier than Ra's al Ghul, crazier than the Joker. That's quite the pitch. So who is this guy? Who is Roman Sionis? Well, he was neglected as a young boy by his parents, not to mention the second he was born, he was dropped on his head. His parents were the annoying rich type, and he wasn't a fan of that lifestyle. They cared more about the glam than they did their own son. It's quite sad. They were always phony, so he grew to obsess over masks. Makes sense. He grew up and became the vice president of his father's company, Janus Cosmetics. But he wanted total control of his family's empire, so he burned down his family home with his parents still inside. So all that wealth now belonged to him, which is super dark. So his parents used masks to gain their fortune, while he used their fortune to collect exotic masks from around the world. Crazy how life works. Number 3, Bane breaks the bat. Bane was born to serve the life sentence of his father. He spent his childhood locked away at Peno Duro prison in Santa Prisca, and his mother was locked up with him, but she died when he was only 6 years old. He would have these dreams about this demonic bat while he was serving time. So when he busted out of prison with Trog, Zombie, and Bird, his new plan was to take down the Batman, who he had heard tales of. Plus the dreams, he kind of pinned this whole horrible upbringing on Batman himself, which makes sense. So in Batman issue 497, we see Bane dish out one of the worst paybacks ever, a broken back. Number 2, Baron Helmut Zemo. Making his first appearance as Phoenix in Captain America issue 168, he's the son of Baron Heinrich Zemo, who was the master scientist and enemy of Captain America during World War II, until he was killed by Cap, of course. So he grew up wanting to get back at the man responsible, Captain America. Even after the death of Steve Rogers following Civil War, Zemo still wanted to take down Bucky, who had stepped up to take over as new Cap. So Zemo revealed all of the Winter Soldier's dirty past to the media, which I really hope is the main plot for the new Falcon and Winter Soldier show, because that would be amazing. And it would make sense. And number 1, Ultimate Spider-Man's death. Peter shows up a lot on this list, which makes sense. Maybe it's because he's constantly talking shit while he locks up all of his enemies, makes it easier for them to dish out that sweet revenge once they inevitably break out. Ultimate Spider-Man's death is so exhausting and saddening. So after tackling Captain America and literally taking a bullet for him, Peter heads home to find that Electro, Sandman, Vulture, and Kraven are there waiting for him. They all wanted a piece of the spider, and in the end, they got what they wanted. Peter tried his hardest, but this was the last of Ultimate Spider-Man. Miles witnessed this last act of bravery, and it actually inspired him to take on the mantle afterwards. So the villains may have won this time, but don't worry, because Miles is going to be waiting for you as soon as you're done.